Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special weekend edition of the Tom Renz Show. We got some interesting things happening here, and a lot to talk about this week. We were unable to do yesterday's show, so we're here today. So you get to see us on Saturday. We'll see how that goes. We'll see if anybody watches us on Saturday. See what our schedule looks like. I think we'll have wonderful viewership as usual. But anyways, we are here, and lots happening. Of course, we had a huge MAHA kind of thing going on this week, and everybody is very excited about it. And there were some very good things that came from it, but also a whole lot of nothing that came from it, in the sense that, a lot of what we're talking about is stuff that we know, and we'll have to see where it goes. It's nice, and we're all very excited to hear Bobby and Trump and all these people talk about it, but I want to see what they're going to do about it, right? And they're doing some stuff. We're getting some progress on the food side. We're seeing some starts on the regulatory side, but there's a lot more that needs to be done before any of this is substantive. And right now, the one thing I would challenge you to remember is that, yes, we're excited, but one thing I've noticed about the health freedom movement, because, I started in health freedom when COVID hit, but health freedom as a movement, it's been around for a long time. And since I've been here, I've always marveled at one absolute truth. And that is, health freedom as a movement is truly something that is not, the people in it have been so crapped on for so long that y'all are excited to take breadcrumbs. You got people who are just kings and queens in terms of their knowledge, their ability, their capacity, but everybody's just willing to accept breadcrumbs. I don't want breadcrumbs. I want us to be free. I want us to understand that the pharma industrial complex is corrupt, it's shady, and it's controlling the world. And so we have to expect more. Part of us succeeding in this fight is expecting more and demanding more. And so, I think that it's wonderful what we're seeing, but I want more. So we're going to talk about that. Really interesting post about Kroger's today, of all things, a grocery store. Why does that matter? Well, because when we look at MAHA and we look at the foods and the drugs and the stuff, Kroger's also has a pharmacy. When we look at what's happening, what better place could there be to exert control than a grocery store? So we're going to hit some of that. Lots of other things. I've got a really interesting conversation that I had with AI that I think is important, because Twitter's having all sorts of troubles. And, Twitter put AI in charge of the algorithm and some other things here recently. And it's interesting. Since then, they've had nothing but troubles. And so we're going to talk about that and a number of other things. We're going to start, though, and where we're going to get going on this is, the MAHA press conference, all this stuff, and the MAHA report from the White House talked about a ton of critical issues, even brought up vaccines. The most notable exception, and it was a glaring 600-pound gorilla in the room, was there was no discussion of mRNA poisons, the gene therapy drugs that are out there that have failed so badly with COVID, that have failed so badly in so many fronts. Nobody said a word about them. Now, the reason this is so notable and so important is, on one side, you've got Trump rightly claiming that pharma runs the world. They do. But on the other side, you've got no one talking about it. And, one of the things nobody's talking about is the explosion of cancer. Cancer has just absolutely skyrocketed, particularly in young people, the turbo cancers. The cancer explosion has been terrifying. It really has been. And it's something that, honestly, folks, it's something that we really have to understand. So we're going to talk. I got a friend of mine, a new friend that we met through my buddy John Richardson, the RNC store. He's going to talk to me about his cancer journey. And it's important because, a lot of people are dealing with cancer, and it's a horrible thing. And the question is how. What do we do to fix it? How do we do it? How do we deal with cancer? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that starting up, which is really relevant in light of the fact that we have a cancer explosion from these mRNA jabs, and no one is willing to talk about it. I think it's crucial. So anyways, lots coming, big show. Before we do, of course, I need to ask for your help and for your support. Please consider becoming a monthly donor. go to givesendgo.com/Renslaw. That's givesendgo.com/Renslaw. And just become a monthly donor. $20 a month makes a world of difference to us. We need your help, need your support. So please consider going there. And then also go to TomRenz.com, www.tomrenz.com. You have to type it. You can't type Tom Renz. You just get Google, sending you to hit pieces on me because the mainstream press hates me. But go to TomRenz.com, go up to shop and click partners and affiliates. And then, make sure you're supporting Kirk Elliott. A Block Trust IRA. I love these guys. You can get legit, not meme coin crap, but real life IRAs with crypto in it. And Trump loves crypto. Crypto's coming. Doesn't matter whether we like it or not. It's where it's going. So you can get that into your retirement accounts and your investment accounts with a responsible company that takes care of you guys through Block Trust IRA, one of my new favorite sponsors. Then scroll down, and of course, we've got a ton of people that we love here, great sponsors. Don't forget to check Global Healing. Global Healing was one of the core supplement companies that we used when we were fighting cancer in my house. And then scroll down a little more, and here it is, Richardson Nutritional Center, rncstore.com/Renz, rncstore.com/Renz. Make sure you're checking them out. If you use Renz at end, you get a 10% discount code. It's definitely worth looking at, but rncstore.com/Renz. Make sure you're supporting them. All right. Without further ado, I want to bring in Rick, but remember, folks, we are seeing an explosion of these turbo cancers. And a lot of people are talking about ivermectin, fenben, which I like. It's working for a lot of people. But what we found, and what I found personally, is that when we talk about cancer, you want to use, you really want to hit it from a lot of directions because there's different types of cancers and different things work. Ivermectin and fenben are working for a lot of people, but not everybody. There are people it does not work for. There's a lot of people it does not work for. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. You're going to have to try some different things because what's happened is the CDC, NIH, HHS, under Fauci and crew would not study any of these things. So Bobby's doing good studies and trying to get real science out there. But until we get it, we don't know for sure which of these alternative treatments will work best for you. But we know that they all work in various cases. So try them, experiment. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain if you do it. So I recommend strongly that you do this. So I will talk a little bit about this with my new friend. How are you doing today, Rick?
Doing fine, Tom.
Very pleased.
Glad to be on the show. I've been reading about you, and an interesting guy.
Well, yeah, some say that. Some call me things a little less friendly, but we fight. We fight for things that we think are important. We fight to try and help people to get truth out there and to do these things. And I think one of the most important things that we're fighting for right now in regards to the MAHA movement is we still have all the fallout that's occurring from the 60 to 80% of people globally that got these mRNA poisons. And one of the major side effects we're seeing, and I've chronicled this extensively in my work, is these things are resulting in just an explosion of turbo cancers. And you are a cancer survivor, but you had cancer way before mRNA. That had nothing to do with anything that you faced. You had a true and legitimate form of cancer a while back, and you beat it. Can you tell us a little bit about your diagnosis and just kind of give us the background of your story?
Well, I may be one of the oldest living Laetrile relics on the planet. I was at the Mayo Clinic in 1974. At that time, it was a stage 3 high-grade embryonal cell carcinoma that had immediately spread to my lymphatic system. That was the problem.
Which is bad.
Do it again.
Which is really bad for anybody that's not sure. Once it gets to the lymph system, that can very much be a death sentence. It's a very bad situation.
That's a super highway, and it takes it to every organ.
Yep.
And so they operated on my feet, and they found it. They operated on my neck up here. They found it, and the chemotherapist came in for his father to son talk. Remember, 24 years old at the time.
Oh, man.
And he said, it's everywhere. And we're going to, today's Friday. We'll start you on a lot of chemo on Monday, but your cancer is very serious. And so I said, okay, all right. Yes, doctor.
Yeah.
And I don't say that anymore than,
No.
but for those of us that believe in a creator God, that afternoon, I got a letter in the mail Friday, and it was from a John Bircher. We don't hear much about that anymore, but that's like MAGA on steroids.
Yep.
And this guy wrote me a note, little 13-cent stamp, and it said, "Dear Rick, if you want to live, you should leave the Mayo Clinic." And he signed his name and phone number. And I knew the guy.
You know, you can tell, you dated it. I'll tell you how you dated it. It's been a minute since we've had a 13-cent stamp.
Yeah, that's right. I just remember that for some odd reason.
Yeah.
But I called him up. I said, "John, do you know where I am?" He said, "Of course I do. I know how long you've been there, and I've been following you." I said, "Okay, well, that's good. But who would leave the Mayo Clinic? It's the citadel of modern medicine." He said, "I agree with that, but I don't think it's medicine you need." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, you've been there a month. How's it going?" I said, "I'm really sick. I'm down to 120 pounds. They have me on morphine. I'm starting to see pink elephants."
Well,
And I said, "I don't really know what to do." He said, "Rick, let me give you some phone numbers and you call a few people and we'll talk. But you need to go somewhere where they understand the immune system. Western medicine doesn't play that game."
no.
So I hung up. I called a few patients. Of course, it gave me people that had glowing reports. Then I called the doctor, told him my story, and he said, "Okay, you're sick, real sick." And he said, "So I need to ask you a question. Are you willing to do what we ask you to do when you get down here?" I said, "Doc, I don't know. I mean, you haven't told me what you want to do. It might be hanging by my toenails." He said, no. I'm an MD. I practice at Boston General. I'm the real deal, and I have my own clinic now in Tijuana. And I thought, boy, you imagine going to your family and saying, "I'm going to leave the Mayo Clinic.
Yeah. I'm dying from cancer. I'm going to Tijuana.
And what we're going to do is we're going to take apricots and we're going to, liquefy them. We're going to put them in your arm here and you're going to get better." Well, he said to me, "If you're willing to do what we ask you to do, then I will have an ally in my fight. If you don't do what we ask you to do, then it's not participatory medicine that we practice. This isn't something we do to you. This is something we do with you. And there's all the difference in the world." And that afternoon, I got a phone call from my church that said they would pay my way down there. I mean, just signpost after signpost. But that night I had to meet with my family. They had flown into town to see who gets a gold watch. I stood up after dinner and said, "I'm thinking about leaving the Mayo Clinic and going to Tijuana." And I looked around the room and it was like this. And my older brother said, what?
I'll bet it was.
My older brother Sam said, Sam Hill, if you can believe that. He said, "Ricky, if you leave the Mayo Clinic, I will never speak to you again." I thought that was kind of a shallow threat,
Yeah.
in my situation. And I looked around the room, got to my dad, and he said, "Ditto." And then back to Sam, he said, "We've always known you've been stupid. We just didn't know how stupid you could be." And I thought, that's going well. But then they got to my father-in-law. Big contractor kind of a guy. He had Caterpillar tractors, trucks, that kind of guy. Seed corn hat. Stood up and he took the toothpick out of his mouth and he said, "I like it. I'll take him down there and I'll help pay for it." Well, and my family went, they didn't want any part of that program. So I said, "Deal. 2 days later, we left and we went to the Oasis of Hope Hospital in Tijuana. Dr. Ernesto, who's passed on now, but his son, as you know, is taking over the hospital.
Yeah.
But
And
then
they're
it was
well-known.
kind of a hole in the wall clinic.
Well, they're well known at this point. I mean, they're like, I know of them. I mean, they've become a very respected clinic.
Well, it's a 5-story hospital. He's a surgeon. These are well qualified guys that aren't playing the fringe.
No.
Documented everything. They're producing dendritic cell vaccines in their basement, which are real vaccines, not the stuff I didn't take it, but the stuff that a lot of people took and got very sick, as you know.
Yep.
You were on the front line of that battle.
Yep.
And so I got down there, and picture this. I'm a Detroit greaser, the Fonz hairdo, the whole thing. And I am no health. I don't know if we had a health food store in Detroit. Who knew?
Yeah.
And my mother was from Sand Mountain, Alabama, fried everything in lard, all that. And I drank the Cokes, and I went to McDonald's 3 nights a week. And they marched me into my first health food store, and there's Ravi Shankar music playing. I've heard people in 100% wrinkled clothes digging food out of barrels. One guy got right next to me and went, "Oh, wow, I can feel it." And I thought, the only thing I can feel is the urge to get out of here. I am not blending. Tom, some of your listeners and viewers are not going to blend either. Yeah. And I say, so what?
Just because you don't necessarily live a certain lifestyle. Listen, everybody's got something to offer, and I gotta be honest. The group of the kind of subculture you're referencing, those guys that are really in the natural stuff, they've become some of my best friends at this point, and some of the most respected people that I know, because they're just they've been underestimated for so long. Right. There's a lot of historic knowledge and earth knowledge, things about the planet that we just have forgotten. And there's kind of a subculture of people who have embraced that and remembered that, and it's something that I've learned an immense amount about. I actually love that whole subculture at this point. Like I wasn't used to it either, growing up in Ohio, doing what I do, but it's same sort of thing, so I know what you mean. We got a little bit of a lockup here with Rick. Well, we'll bring him right back. But what Rick's talking about is like where we see like my dear friend Ed Group and Henry Ely and some of these guys who are, they're certainly not mainstream by any means, but they've won around the world. And so for Ed, for example, with Global Healing, who I always promote, and I promote them for a reason, I'm proud to promote them. So Ed will actually travel around the world, and he was just in India not too long ago, and he's looking for traditional medicine and different solutions that work. Oh, I think we got you back there, Rick. Yeah. But this it's kind of a but this is traditional stuff. This is stuff that was used for thousands of years and worked. And so when we're first exposed to it, we're like, wait a second, that sounds crazy, because we're so conditioned to the mainstream narratives. But it's not. It's actually not crazy. It's based on thousands of years of knowledge that's been passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah, and then the nurse comes in after a couple of days and says, "All right, Mr. Hill, we got to start your detox program." And I said, "Great, okay, what's that?" And she says, "Did you ever change the water in the radiator of your car?" And I said, "Yeah, lots of that." She said, "How'd you do it?" Well, you take the caps off, you put the garden hose in. When it runs clear, you cap them up and lay rubber out of the parking lot. She went, and I went, "What?" And she held up a hose, and I said, "Where does the hose go?" So, of course, I never had a colonic growing up in Detroit, but I've had hundreds since then. And I can't say it's somewhere I'd go on Saturday night for a date. I can't say that I would look forward to it, but it doesn't hurt, and it's not embarrassing. When Elvis died, they said he had over 50 pounds of undigested food in his colon. And that means that it was leaking through the walls and into his, no thank you. And so they said it's very important, especially because you're down to 120 pounds, that we keep things moving. And they did. So then I got on the diet, which was 80% raw and uncooked fruits and vegetables.
Yep.
So it gets boring. I'm telling you.
But wait a second. I don't want to overlook what you said there. And let me draw attention to this. I want everybody, because anybody who's dealing with cancer needs to understand this. Raw and uncooked, these fresh foods, whatever it is, critical. This is part of the MAHA thing that we can't overlook. Yes, mRNA is obviously what it is. We got some major issues, but the damage that's been done to our food supply is incredible. And understand also that Rick is talking about food that was grown back in the day before the fields were filled with glyphosate and sprayed with poisons and this, that, and other. So the food that you put in you can heal you in a phenomenal way, but the field it's grown in, the stuff that's sprayed on it, is it GMO? Is it non-GMO? How is it GMO? If it's meat, was it vaccinated? Was it unvaccinated? What poisons were put in it? What steroids? What this? What that? All these things figure into the value, the nutritional value that makes you either better or worse by what you're putting in your body. So I don't want to gloss over that aspect of this, because in terms of the diet, that is a foundational piece of recovery for anything, whatever supplements, medicines, or anything else you're doing. If you put poison in you, you're going to get poisoned.
That's true. And a lot of people get bored with it. And we're raising a generation of weenies.
That's
just absolutely
the most accurate statement I've ever heard.
I want to go out for pizza and beer again. I go, shut up. Just shut up. How varied is your diet 6 feet under the ground?
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I want to point out pro enzymes.
Yep.
You read Dr. Krebs.
Oh, we're having another lockup. Terrible time. Okay, well, we'll get Rick right back. I know we're having there's a lot of tech glitches right now. And it's kind of across the board. And Twitter's really having issues right now. And we noticed that we're having some today as well. So I apologize for everybody for that. But the pro enzymes that Rick was talking about, that is a critical thing. Those pro enzymes are so B17 and Laetrile, the stuff that I like that a lot as a supplement for cancer. But you want those enzymes really are a crucial component.
Crucial.
They really help with systemic issues, and the theory is that these things make a huge impact in limiting the spread and the metastasization of the cancer throughout the body, and also increase the availability, getting the healing components of the B17 into the cancer cells. So those enzymes are a crucial piece, and I think those enzymes are a crucial piece, even if you're using different interventions. It's not just for the B17. Having the right enzymes available in your body for whatever your treatment is important, because you need to make sure that those treatments are properly activated.
And they have, chymotrypsin, trypsin, and the mistake people make is they go, okay, enzymes, I'll take it with my meals. But it's important that you take these between meals so that you're not taking them to digest that steak you just ate. Yeah. You're taking them to digest the protein surrounding that cancer cell. Yeah. That's the important part of this. Yeah. And I only took 3 items, B15, B17, and the enzymes. Yeah. And that's what makes it hard for people to believe.
Yeah.
Because the Mayo Clinic was complex and all this stuff, and it cost $500,000 and, all of this. And then I say, well, I took 3 products in 21 days. I was out of there. And that was 50 years ago. And they go, no.
Well, I'm going to challenge you on that one, Rick. And I'll tell you why. You took 3 products in 21 days, but you also you cleaned your body, you cleansed your body, and you ate right, and you created an environment where those products could be successful.
Yeah.
So what we saw and what I've kind of observed and seen and studied on the cancer side is that there's two parts. There's the treatment component, which in this case and in your case, you've got a couple supplement products that I'm obliged to say the FDA is not evaluated for the treatment or cure of anything. But you've got your B17, your enzymes, your B15. So you've got those, but then you also, just arguably as importantly,
evenly,
was you created an environment within your body where your body had the capacity to heal. You got rid of the poisons, you put in good stuff, and so your body was well equipped for the healing to occur. So I think I certainly understand what you're saying, but I just want to make sure people hear that, because a lot of people, if anybody's watching this saying, well, what do I got to do to, fix my cancer? Well, listen, first of all, you talk to your doctors, figure out what you got to do, yourself. I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to be a doctor. I'm just telling you what I've seen and what I've studied and what I've observed. But if you're looking at this and you're looking for hope, and, I actually had a conversation today with someone, wonderful, wonderful person, who was talking about their father, being late stage cancer. And, we talked a little bit about, trying some of these alternative treatments. I said, well, if they're late stage, what do you got to lose? Because the remark that was made was, well, it's kind of too late to really do anything. I said, well, then if it's too late to do anything, then you should do everything. Right.
Yeah, right.
Because if you give up, the result is inevitable. As long as you continue trying, you never know. You might find something that's a miracle. You might not. But, it really, especially late stage. And I want to encourage anybody who is late stage, who's feeling defeated, who feels like, oh, we've tried. No, you haven't tried everything. There's always another thing. And keep fighting. Keep going after it. Don't give up. Don't let the depression, Rick, I can only imagine being a 20-some-year-old kid with late-stage cancer, told that you ain't going to make it. Emotionally, you had to be just absolutely soul-crushed.
Well, that's an important point you make, because of this. A lot of people that are selling books and tapes and stuff, and they'll come in and they'll say, you got to believe. Uh-huh. You got to believe in your heart of hearts. And Tom, I got on that airplane to go to Tijuana. My wife got on there with me to kiss me goodbye. Imagine you could do that back then.
Yeah.
And we both were tearing up. And I looked at her and I said, as honestly as I could, listen to me. I think it's going to be a one-way trip. I had more faith in the Mayo Clinic than I did this Tijuana idea. But when I got down there, I had committed myself to do what they asked me to do. And I was caught kicking and screaming through the threshold of faith. I became a believer. I became an enthusiast. But I didn't start out that way. And don't wait for yourself to be that person before you leap through the door. What Tom is saying is, if you're up against that door of, I don't know what to do now, walk through it. You don't know what's on the other side. But I found what I was looking for. And my prayer is that you find what it could be, all the new ones that are coming out now that probably do help people. I haven't used them, but I'm sure they do. But where the rubber meets the road is when you get home. I walked through the door of my house, looked in the fridge, turned to my wife and said, nothing in there we can eat. Looked in the cupboard, same report. Boxed it all up and gave them to our next door neighbors that we weren't crazy about. We went shopping and replaced all that food. And now I take just one of these a day. One. I'm not a crazy person. And it lasts, one bottle lasts 3 months.
You've beat the cancer and you've lived, 50 more years? You said?
Yeah.
So
50.
so you've reached an age that is, you weren't supposed to make 30. But now, you've lived 50 more years. So, proof's in the pudding. They can call you anything they want, but it worked.
It worked for me. And I'm not a doctor. I'm with you. I don't tell people what to do. But thank God for Bobby so far. And I'm doing what you're doing. I'm waiting. But if he came through the door right now, looked at you, looked at the stuff on my counter and said, I don't know about that, I'd say, look, Bobby, no problem.
Yeah.
You don't have to know about that. My question is, can we come out of the closet with this? Can I talk to people about this? Can people try it if they want without fear of... Tom, I smuggled this out of Tijuana into the United States. Do I look like a smuggler to you? I shoved it in my pants.
Well, why is it? And this is one of the foundational issues. You know, we got these alternative treatments from different places around the world, and some of them are banned in the U.S. And it's like, geez, I mean, listen, if you're late stage cancer, and this goes to Trump's, original right to try bill, but it just has never been properly implemented because they fight it. But listen, if you've got late stage cancer and you want to try something that's out there, I mean, so what? So what? It's your decision. I mean, we have the same people who will argue that it's okay to have assisted suicide say, but you can't try this drug or this treatment or this alternative. And it makes no sense. It's so disingenuous. It's just corruption at its finest, in my opinion.
Well, they were going to lose money. John Richardson, MD,
John's dad,
had treated 4,000 patients with Laetrile and diet related, and helped a lot of them to what I helped myself to. And they took away his medical license and threw him in jail, which ruins somebody.
It sure does.
So I stand on the shoulders of tall men and women that have gone before me and made it possible. But we can do more. That's what you said at the beginning of the show. I want more. And I'm with you.
Well, we deserve more, and we'd have to demand more. And it only comes if we demand it, because there's people who are using their money and power and influence to prevent us from having it. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think the human aspects, because I want to bring this around to some people. Listen, if you're a young person and you're facing what's essentially a turbo cancer right now, and you're being told that, you got to get 20 plus rounds of radiation and 10 to 20 rounds of chemo and everything else. Listen, there are alternatives out there. I don't know the right solution for anyone, and I'm not telling you what to do, but I will tell you, I am absolutely certain that you need to be asking a lot of questions. You need to be getting second and third opinions. You need to be looking at everything that's out there, mainstream, alternative, everything else. There's a spot. I will tell you that if you're fighting cancer and you don't go to the doctor, I think you're a nutbag. And the reason I think that is because there's one thing that the doctors do that we can't get anywhere else. That's diagnostics. If you don't know what you're fighting, how can you fight it? Right. And so you do need the diagnostics. You do need to know, I got these tumors, I got this, I got that. And then you also need to be able to measure, right? So whatever treatment you're using, whether it's alternative or mainstream, you need to continue having those diagnostics, because you need to know, is this working or is it not? Hey, I've been on this for 3 months. Are the tumors growing and spreading, or are they shrinking and going away? And those are things that you have to have. So you can't remove the mainstream from the equation without losing the ability to have that. And there are things that the mainstream provides that's okay, but at the same time, ruling out alternative just because they haven't looked at it or studied it, I mean, I can't imagine, especially when so many alternative treatments from around the world. I mean, you look at some of the ancient Chinese medicine, some of the stuff out of India, some of the stuff, Japan, one of the mainstream treatments they use in breast cancer is a certain strain of mushrooms. They feed you these mushrooms, and it's mainstream. Now, Japan's not a third world country. It's not a crappy health system, but they include these mushrooms as a part, as a mainstream part of the treatment. So ruling it out because American medicine doesn't include it as part of their mainstream treatment is really just asking for trouble, in my opinion. And we got a guy sitting here in front of us. It's a case study in that, right?
Yeah, and if scurvy had been introduced in America 100 years later, we'd still be having it. But back then they said, you want to drink your rum, put lime in it. And then the scurvy went away, and they thought, think of that. And that's a terminal disease, which was really a metabolic deficiency.
Well,
why can't cancer be part of that?
Well, there's no reason it can't. I mean, listen, we do know, and there's been for a lot of people don't realize, but throughout the 20th century, majority of that century, science had viewed cancer as a metabolic issue. And there in about the 80s or 90s, there was a shift. And what happened was cancer, the reason everybody had kind of just accepted that it was a metabolic disorder, of some form. Mm-hmm. Now, in the 80s or 90s, they never disproved that theory. They just quit studying it and then moved exclusively into the idea that it's a genetic issue. And then they blocked out and they memory hold everything about the metabolic. Since then, we found also that there's a parasitic aspect of certain cancers, not all cancers. So for any of you out there saying Ben, ivermectin, fix it all, it doesn't. There are cancers that respond very well to that. And it is a good treatment for a lot of people. But there is not a doctor on this planet that's having 100% success rate of all cancers with ivermectin alone or ivermectin combination. It is working well, and I absolutely love when people are using it. Some people are getting totally cured with it, but you want to kind of look at this in a comprehensive. There is no one cure for cancer, but because there's no one type of cancer, there are parasitic cancers, there are metabolic, I think this is kind of a new thing, but it's my personal opinion. There are genetic cancers now, and I think that's a result of some of the poisons that we're putting in our health and our system. Some of the radiation, the RF radiation that we're exposed to. I think that's causing genetic damage, and so I do think there are. Yep, 100%. So I do think that there are some genetic cancers. I think predominantly the metabolic and parasitic tend to be the best view of it. And when we treat it that way, it seems to be the most effective treatments. And, it's just kind of figuring out what you got going on in your body. But I really, really appreciate your story, Rick. I mean, what message you have for people, that are fighting this and, going through. I mean, when you think back to how you felt as a kid, the fear, the lack of direction, all the things that everybody faces. And by the way, attitude is a huge component of it. But when you tell someone that just got told that they're going to die by a doctor, hey, you just need to have a good attitude. Well, a lot of times they want to slap you. So we gotta, yes, it's great to encourage people to have a good attitude, but there's a difference between encouraging them and just kind of closing your mind to the reality of the situation. So what message would you have for people kind of across the board that are facing this?
If they take the time to do some research, to know in their heart that this has historical verification, that really smart people looked at this and said, this makes sense to us. Then what you do, whether you're scared to death, you walk through that door with 100% commitment, not 100% faith yet, not 100% courage yet, but 100% commitment that I will do this program, not just take a pill, but as you said, I'll learn how to juice. I'll learn a colonic or two. I'll learn all of these things to get your body 100% straightened around, no matter what they're using. Then there's the second part of this. After the treatment and you're in remission, that's when the challenge comes. Because how long are you going to do this? You going to do it for 50 years? A lot of people give up and they get bored. And I don't want to do it anymore. And then they die. Because as you said, when that cancer comes back, it's a lion and way harder to stop, like a freight train. So I would say get in the program and then stay in the program. You dial it down a bit, but stay in the program if you want to keep living and you want longevity.
I would agree with everything you said. I would say one other thing. Um,
Yeah.
I will tell you that every single mainstream cancer treatment, every chemo, every radiation carries with it a risk of causing cancer. So one of the things that they do, and I've looked at this, when they study cancer drugs, they study the 5-year survival. And the reason that they do that is they'll say, oh, use chemo, radiation, surgery. We got rid of your tumors. You're alive. You've been alive for 5 years. You're good. The chemo, the radiation, all these other things take more than 5 years to create a new cancer. So then 7 years down the road, you've got cancer again, but it's a different type. And they're like, oh, that's unrelated. Luckily, the chemo treated you before, so we'll give you another round. But it does. And because of what that does to your system and the radiation does to your system, it does get harder to treat. That would be really interesting to me. And there's no studies that I know of that have studied recurrence in someone who's taken an alternative treatment versus the chemo radiation treatment. It'd be very interesting to know whether the recurrence levels are as high on the alternatives as they are on we don't know that, but my guess would be that they're not. So I think that, yes, you got to stay true to it. But if you stay away from some of these things that are going to cause you cancer, you might not have to worry about it quite as much. So, Rick, thanks for having the courage to do this and for leading. And everybody, make sure you go to tomrenz.com, www.tomrenz.com, or just type rncstore.com/renz. Go there and get there. And you can find Rick's book. Rick's got a book, and it is in the RNC store under books. Make sure you're checking it. If you use discount code RENZ, you get 10%. So make sure you're supporting them there. And push these guys. Help these guys get the truth out there. You can hear this. This is, I look at, you got a happy, well-adjusted guy 50 years later, beat an unbeatable cancer. Congratulations, Rick.
Oh, thank you. And kudos to you for having the courage to stand up, especially at a hard time in our country's history. You held that rally, Reawaken America tour, and you confronted them, and they were shocked. They were shocked. And those reverberations, I told you, I saw a post about you a week ago when I didn't know who you were. And I read it and I remembered it. And then when your place got a hold of me, I said, wait a minute. And this lady, I wrote and said, I'm going to be on Tom Renz's show. And she went, really?
Well,
and so you're creating a swath. You're cutting. And that's what people need. They need direction more than anything.
It's a great honor for you to say that. It's the reason that we do what we do here. We've been building this show for a few years now, and it's to supplement my legal work and my political work. And the goal is to help people to see truth. It kind of is that, Clay Clark and General Flynn and a lot of my friends, we all did the Reawaken. And, this is a continuance of that. We have to continue to reawaken America. We have to continue to fight to awaken people, to get the truth out there and to stand against tyranny, whether, whatever it looks like, and to ensure that, people get the truth. So, Rick, I appreciate you being here very, very much. Love to have you back sometime.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Rick. And we'll have you back soon. All right, everybody. That's Rick Hill. It makes me feel real good to bring you guys hope and stories of hope like this. Rick is he's anybody that fights cancer and beats cancer. You automatically get the warrior badge. And to beat a aggressive cancer that's gotten into your lymph system and has spread, that is a death sentence in many, many cases. And for Rick to do what he did is really a thing. And it's so critical right now because in light of the turbo cancer explosion that we're getting, we really have to have this. And we want people to have hope. You can't quit fighting. You got to keep going. But that turbo cancer explosion is not an accident. It's not unpredictable. It's not something they didn't know. And it's something that was, very much both known and predictable in light of the fact that, the FDA in 2006 provided industry guidance to people working on gene therapeutics. And mRNA is a gene therapy drug, right? So they can say what they want, Both Pfizer and Moderna have admitted in their SEC filings, which they can't lie or they go to jail, they've admitted that these are gene therapy drugs. So you have these gene therapy drugs, admitted gene therapy drugs that fall under the definition of gene therapy drugs. And we have the 2006, all the way back in 2006, the FDA provided industry guidance saying that one of the delayed adverse reactions that can occur for people who take these sorts of gene therapy drugs is cancer. It is absolutely a thing. So we now have this explosion of cancer, just as expected, a few years after the gene therapy drugs are introduced, and it's going to continue to get worse. Not everybody's going to get cancer, but the number of people who have gotten it is mind-blowing. And the risk is mind-blowing. And the risk is even more mind-blowing in light of the fact that there's no benefit. It doesn't stop the transmission of COVID. COVID isn't killing anybody at this point. It never was, as hospital protocols it were. And so you've got these poisons that are causing cancers, causing autoimmune issues, which were also in that FDA document, and a number of other issues. But nobody's talking about it. Enter the MAHA report. Okay, so the MAHA report was a huge deal, and I love this report. I think it's a big, big deal. But let's talk about the MAHA report. Let's talk about what it did and what it didn't. So what the MAHA report did, and you can find, I just put out a Substack on it today, tomrenz.substack.com, tomrenz.substack.com. What it did was it put forth and broke down a number of issues in our health, our nation's health, where there's crisis, right? And they talked a lot about kids. So we've got some stats. Over 40% of the nearly 73 million American children now suffer from at least one chronic health condition. Asthma, allergies, obesity, and autoimmune, behavioral disorders. 40% of our kids have an issue. Think about that. There's 73 million kids in America, and that means 30 plus million of them, around that 30 million mark, have a chronic health condition. Can you imagine that? How messed up is our system for that? Childhood obesity has gone up more than 270% since the 70s, with 1 in 5 children over the age of 6 now obese. 1 in 5. 20% of our kids over the age of 6 are fat. Think about that. I see it makes me so sad. When we go out in public, I'll see these little kids, 7, 8 years old, and they just look like they ate a beach ball. Meanwhile, they're walking around with their mom, and mom's got a hot dog in their hands or some sort of crap food in their hands. It's like, really? Really? You don't see an issue with this? This kid's going to have lifelong health issues. At 7, 8 years old, you should be a skinny little rail running around outside playing all the time. But no, we don't have that, right? Autism. We're up to 1 in 31 kids. 1 in 31. That's not an issue. That's a crisis. I mean, it was 1 in 10,000 back before they did pass the Vaccine Act. Now it's up to 1 in 31. Think about that. This is terrifying, folks. Childhood cancer has risen 40%. That's since 1975. So understand, we're not talking about the turbo cancers from the COVID. We're talking about childhood cancers in general that were exploding before the turbo cancers. Why? What's changed? Our food, the vaccines, the Vaccine Act. There's a lot of things that have changed. But what's really changed is that we're poisoning our children, and we're okay with it. No one's doing anything about it. It is appalling, the health of kids in this age. This is a mental health crisis. Think about this one. 1 in 4 teenage girls experience at least one major depressive episode. And suicide has become the second leading death amongst teens. Second leading death amongst teens is suicide. That's tragic. That's tragic on levels I can't even describe. But yet, what are we doing about it? Are we helping these kids? No, we're feeding them crap. We're poisoning them. We're letting them get brainwashed with social media and these things. I mean, it's horrific. 75% of Americans age 17 to 24, 75% are ineligible for military service because they're fat, they're out of shape, they got mental health issues, et cetera, et cetera. 75%. We can't get soldiers. We screwed up our kids so bad that we can't even get a soldier. You want to know why we've got recruiting problems? Because the kids are so screwed up by the time they're 18, they can't go in there. Yes, we got mRNA poisons, all the things that they do to our soldiers, but even if we wanted them, they can't get in there. This is unbelievable. The MAHA report says that ultra-processed, it talks about 4 primary drivers of these health issues, and this is one of the issues, right? It's ultra-processed foods. 70% of kids' caloric intake is coming from these ultra-processed foods now. Chemical exposure, more than 40,000 chemicals through food, water, and air. 40,000. By the way, if you're not on a detox, go to timeruns.com and get on one. Get your kids on one too. Sedentary lifestyles. Kids don't do anything. They just sit there. Chronic stress, no sleep, just sit there. There's just no move. And then we medicate everybody to just insane levels. Excessive medical intervention. Every kid's on you got kids on Ritalin like it's freaking candy and popcorn. Antidepressants in children. Now we push this trans stuff in kids. We're poisoning these kids. We're ruining them. Instead of just telling, hey, get outside and play, get healthy, eat some food, good food, healthy food. No. We got to poison them with meds and oh my God, it's awful. So now the MAHA thing talks about this is because of corporate capture, regulatory agencies, and these other things that are really kind of messing up our food. Now, here's the one thing, though. One thing. They did not in this address the elephant in the room, and that is the mRNA, right? The mRNA, we just had this week a black box warning come out on myocarditis, especially for young boys, and the COVID jabs. It messes with your heart, and it does it in a profound and terrible way. You will be damaged if you do these, right? These aren't isolated; they're constant, and it's so bad that they have no choice but to acknowledge that already. Now, nobody was allowed to talk about blood clots, but there's this huge body of evidence tying these mRNA vaccines to these deadly thromboembolisms and other sort of thrombosis type issues, blood clots on a massive scale. So we've got all these things happening. It's a critical thing. It's critical. So this is a huge deal. And so a lot of these are getting the fatal, right? Turbo cancers are exploding. They're exploding all over the place, and there's direct ties to this COVID. So the thing that I'm talking about is we've got all this stuff going on, but no one's allowed to talk about this, right? No one's allowed to talk about this mRNA side. They're allowed to talk about vaccines a little bit now. That's coming out a little bit more, and I'm hoping that the next step will be that they're allowed to actually talk about the mRNA. But at this point, there's just you're not allowed to talk about it. The mRNA is a holy grail, and even the administration is not willing or able to take that on right now. Now, hopefully, that's going to change, and they very well may be working on some things, but I just don't know yet. We'll see where it goes. I know Bobby's got his hands tied. I know that there are some people at the White House that are big fans of it. And they're blocking some of what Bobby, I think, would otherwise be doing. I can't say that for sure, but I got some pretty good information on that. We can't ignore the issues that we're facing. So that's all happening, and it's crucial. Now, I want to get into real quick, and I only have a second to get into this. I posted this on Twitter today. Wall Street Apes put out this great post on Kroger. They talk about how they are making billions of dollars off of mining your data. So they take pictures. They've got surveillance. They associate your video, who you are, what you buy, everything else. It's all surveilled, right? And then they sell it. Now, what does that do, and why is that so important? This is the grocery store, right? Kroger has literally CIA level cutting edge surveillance equipment. They are monitoring, they're tracking you and everything. It's a grocery store, but it's also a pharmacy. When you go to Kroger's, and they're not the only ones doing it, but they're definitely leading. They are tracking every piece of food that you buy and all your medicines all in one spot. They've got all this data, so they can sell it, they can analyze it, they can do what they got to do with it, and there's nothing you can do about that. Okay? So your data is then being used. Well, think how valuable that is for Big Pharma, right? Big Pharma and Big Ag have combined, by the way. They're very much the same thing. So they make food poisonous. The poisonous food makes you sick, and then you use the pharmaceutical products to deal with it. It's really a tremendous snake oil scam. This Kroger thing fits in with what we're talking about very, very succinctly, because you got to understand that the ability to know what you're going to eat and what you're going to buy, and to track that, and then to have long-term data that shows, oh, hey, you've been eating hot dogs for 10 years. Now you're on a statin. I mean, this is incredibly valuable data for Big Pharma and their crew and those other people. So this is a huge deal, and I can't overstate the importance of this. It's the kind of story that people miss. They just don't worry about it. It's not like that big of a deal to them, but it is a critical story, and it's something that I think that we all need to be aware of, because your data is being mined everywhere. It's only getting worse. If you notice, when you do self-checkout, they've got a camera looking at you, and even though some of the regulars, they've got cameras looking at you so they can record everything you do and track everything. And that's all. What's happening is they're now taking that video surveillance of you, associating it with your purchases, and also with your credit card. So they have a digital identity for you. This is a crucial thing, because your digital identity is something that's out there, it's public, it's tracked, and it's never going anywhere. Privacy is one of the next big frontiers, the next big things we're going to end up fighting. So listen, we've got a ton more stuff to talk about. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time today, but I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining us on a Saturday. Make sure you hit share, and we will be back very, very